Listen, you magnificent disaster, you walking paradox of pain and power. Listen to the truth that's been screaming inside your bones for longer than you care to admit. The truth you've been terrified to acknowledge. You weren't broken, you were built. And I don't mean that in some shallow self-help nonsense way. I mean you were systematically constructed for conditions that would have incinerated weaker souls. You were assigned challenges that arrived without instructions, without checkpoints, without the luxury of starting over, just endure or evaporate. And look at you, still here, still fighting, still wearing that burden like it's second skin. So let me put something in front of you, and I need you to really sit with this. When was the last time life was gentle with you? When was the last time something unfolded without resistance? When opportunities appeared without obstacles, when acceptance came without interrogation? Never. Because your existence has been one sealed barrier after another, one impossible climb after another, one knife in the back disguised as loyalty, one wound disguised as wisdom. You weren't offered the protected path. You were given pandemonium wrapped in promises and told solve this. And impossibly, defying every reasonable prediction, defying every statistical probability, you solved it. While everyone else was navigating existence on tutorial mode, collecting meaningless awards and riding inherited advantages, you were launched into maximum difficulty at conception. No backup plans, no shortcuts, no rich family to rescue you from consequences, no networks to manufacture opportunities, no advantages to soften reality, just you, exposed and torn open, dragging yourself across broken glass while they strolled on velvet. And here's what's insane. You didn't merely endure it. You began to hunger for it. You began to understand that the easy path would have annihilated you in ways you can't articulate. It would have left you weak, empty, unremarkable. Because here's the reality about ultimate difficulty. It doesn't destroy everyone identically. Most people shatter, most people surrender, most people examine that magnitude of pressure, that depth of suffering, that unending brutality, and they choose disconnection. They choose avoidance. They choose to abandon the game before they've even learned the rules. But you relentless, glorious anomaly, you never had that escape. Or perhaps you had it, and you stared at it and whispered, "Not now, not like this." You faced the void, and instead of flinching, you grinned. You confronted the unachievable and declared, "Try stopping me." Now, we need to discuss what existence actually did to you. Because this wasn't chance. This wasn't misfortune. This wasn't some accidental error where you received the wrong destiny. No, this was calculated. The universe examined your essence before your first breath and recognized something volatile. It recognized capacity so devastating that leaving you in comfort would have been criminal waste. It recognized a force that could only be refined through flame, a consciousness that could only become lethal through friction, a spirit that could only grow through shattering. So it handed you Inferno. It handed you the family that rejected your nature, the companions who abandoned you precisely when you were most vulnerable, the relationships who witnessed your intensity and fled because they couldn't survive immersion in it. It handed you scarcity when others drowned in excess, invisibility when others commanded platforms, dismissal when others received celebration. It handed you every conceivable justification to surrender, to collapse, to dissolve into resentment and curse everything breathing. And still, you remain, not merely surviving, but metamorphosing, not merely breathing, but constructing, not merely existing, but transforming into something they lack vocabulary to describe. You want to understand why easy mode would have suffocated your soul. Because your consciousness is engineered for extremity. Your essence demands conflict. Your intellect requires complexity, or it begins consuming itself from within. You're not designed for monotony, for safety, for the corporate prison where every sunrise mirrors the previous one. You're designed for combat, for genesis, for revolution. You're designed to annihilate and reconstruct, to immolate and resurrect, to perish and return on a perpetual cycle. Comfort would have terminated you faster than any adversity could have managed. Consider this carefully. Every individual you've observed who had it simple, who never confronted authentic struggle, who glided through reality on privilege and coincidence, where are they now? Vacant, mechanical, suffocating in their own existence, pursuing hollow stimulation because they've never experienced anything genuine. They're corpses in designer labels, mindlessly consuming content, searching for purpose they'll never locate, because purpose isn't distributed, it's excavated, it's hammered, it's extracted from agony and assembled with determination. And you have purpose bleeding from every scar you carry. The universe understood that offering you a smooth journey would have been like imprisoning something feral. You would have deteriorated. You would have destroyed the cage from the inside. You would have imploded from pure monotony because your soul wasn't manufactured for security. It was manufactured for tempests. So, the universe delivered tempests. It delivered catastrophes. It delivered eruptions that demolished your foundation so you'd construct on granite. It delivered tsunamis that obliterated your former identity so you'd discover how to survive beneath the surface. And this is where it becomes twisted, where it becomes exquisite in a profane, beautiful way. You started to crave it, didn't you? Not the destruction itself, but the aftermath. Not the collapse, but the reconstruction. Not the descent, but the ascension. You became dependent on your own phoenix cycle. You became possessed by your own transformation. Every time reality knocked you unconscious, you didn't simply recover. You recovered altered, fortified, refined, more conscious, more electric, more unreachable. They can't comprehend this about you. They witness your battles and they either feel sorry for you or condemn you or question why you can't just stabilize like normal people. But what they're missing is that you're not attempting to stabilize like normal people. You're not attempting to conform to their suffocating containers, their mechanical rhythms, their risk-free existence. You're attempting to manifest something unprecedented. You're attempting to transcend beyond the boundaries of what they believe is achievable. You're not just surviving your trials, you're cataloging them like war medals. Every impossible scenario you've conquered, every betrayal you've outlasted, every devastation you've converted into propulsion, it's all intelligence now. It's all expertise. It's all evidence that you can process whatever materializes next. And that's what terrifies them about you. You don't hesitate anymore. You don't spiral. You don't fracture when difficulty arrives, because difficulty is your ecosystem. Disorder is where you dominate. Let's excavate deeper into what these ultimate trials actually represented, because we need to identify them. We need to extract them into visibility and examine them without filter. You were assigned the trial of investing in people incapable of reciprocating. You were assigned the trial of creating when others were demolishing. You were assigned the trial of maintaining sanity in systems engineered to fracture your mind. You were assigned the trial of discovering light when every rational indicator suggested total darkness. You were assigned the trial of parenting yourself when the people obligated to parent you failed catastrophically. You were assigned the trial of mending injuries you never inflicted. You were assigned the trial of inheriting ancestral damage and declaring it terminates with you. You were assigned the trial of being perpetually misunderstood while maintaining your authentic truth. You were assigned the trial of navigating solitude when everyone else possessed communities, networks, infrastructure. You were handed isolation as your training facility, and you know what the most savage element was? You had to execute all of this while observing other people coast effortlessly, while observing incompetence receiving rewards, while observing individuals with fraction of your capabilities, fraction of your commitment, fraction of your depth receiving prospects that belong to you. You had to digest that corruption daily. You had to observe the system being manipulated and still participate. You had to witness people deceiving and scheming and calculating their ascent while you were struggling in obscurity. But here's what they miscalculated. Here's what the universe comprehended, but they couldn't. All of that torment, all of that complexity, all of those impossible trials, they weren't condemnations, they were conditioning. You were being forged, you were being distilled, you were being converted into something capable of withstanding forces that would pulverize ordinary people. You were being engineered to function at elevations where others asphyxiate, because easy mode generates fragile people. Easy mode generates people who disintegrate the instant authentic adversity materializes. Easy mode generates people who require perpetual validation, perpetual cushioning, perpetual affirmation. Easy mode generates people who malfunction when their internet disconnects, who deteriorate when someone unfollows them, who experience identity crises over trivial inconveniences. You're not that. You could never be that. You've endured things that would constitute other people's ultimate nightmare and labeled it routine. You've experienced the category of suffering that people construct memoirs about, produce films about, dedicate their entire therapeutic journey to processing, and you executed it silently. You executed it without broadcasting it. You executed it without soliciting compassion or performing victimhood. You simply absorbed it, metabolized it, converted it into something valuable. You transformed your trauma into insight. You transformed your suffering into strength. You transformed your wounds into wisdom, and now you're functioning on a wavelength that most people can't even detect. You're navigating reality with a gravity, an intensity, a force that makes people uncomfortable because they can sense it. They can sense that you've traveled to territories they haven't. They can detect that you've witnessed things, survived things, become things that they can't fathom. And it intimidates them because you're living proof that their justifications are merely justifications. You're proof that adversity isn't a terminal sentence. It's a catalyst. You're proof that extreme difficulty doesn't obliterate you. It exposes you. You're proof that the most devastating experiences can transform into the most defining experiences if you're willing to execute the work. And most people aren't willing. Most people prefer to remain comfortable in their suffering, prefer to exhibit their trauma like decorations, prefer to blame the universe rather than become what the universe was attempting to forge. But not you. You examined your ultimate trials and you responded, understood. Let's discover where this leads. You didn't interrogate why me. Or, at minimum, not permanently, you interrogated what now, what follows. How do I utilize this? How do I convert this into momentum? How do I make this signify something? And that transition, that microscopic transition from victim to apprentice, from casualty to transformer, that's what revolutionized everything. Now you move different. Now you speak different. Now you exist in a manner that makes people freeze. They can't identify what it is about you. They can't articulate it, but they perceive it. They perceive the gravity. They perceive the profundity. They perceive that you've traveled to locations they're terrified to even conceptualize, and you returned with something they'll never possess. tranquility earned through warfare, serenity forged in mayhem, power constructed from fracturing. You're not arrogant about it. You're not displaying your pain like theater. You're just different. You're just functioning from a foundation of knowing that most people will never access. You know your capabilities because you've already accomplished the impossible repeatedly. You know you can survive because you've already survived the unsurvivable. You know you can reconstruct because you've already reconstructed from nothing, from worse than nothing, from debris and fragments. And here's the exquisite, twisted reality that the universe comprehended from inception. If you had received easy mode, if you had been granted everything without effort, if you had never confronted a solitary obstacle, you would have evolved into everything you currently reject. You would have become privileged, superficial, fragile, dependent. You would have required external validation for your identity. You would have collapsed the first instant reality deviated from your expectations. But because you were thrust into ultimate difficulty, because you were compelled to fight for every millimeter of advancement, because you had to construct yourself from zero with no guidance and defective materials, you became autonomous, you became indestructible, you became someone who doesn't require anyone's endorsement because you've already endorsed yourself. You became someone who doesn't fear devastation because you've already lost everything and discovered you're still standing. You became dangerous in the optimal way. Not dangerous to others, but dangerous to the machinery, dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to conformity. Because you're proof that the limitations don't apply. You're proof that you can originate from nothing and manifest into something. You're proof that the universe's most brutal examinations create its most powerful spirits. And that makes you a disruption to everyone who's constructed their identity on victimhood. They need you to fail. They need you to remain fractured. They need you to validate that the system functions, that difficult origins create difficult destinies, that trauma equals irreversible destruction. But you're not granting them that gratification. You're not remaining confined. You're not accepting the restrictions they attempted to impose on you. You're expanding, you're evolving, you're manifesting, and every day you exist as proof that they were mistaken is another day their worldview fractures. So let's discuss what transpires now. Let's discuss what you execute with all this power you've accumulated, all this strength you've constructed, all this wisdom you've earned. Because you're at an intersection. You can either deploy it or squander it. You can either construct something magnificent or allow it all to deteriorate into bitterness. You can either become the protagonist of your own narrative or the warning in someone else's. The universe delivered ultimate trials for a purpose. It wasn't random. It wasn't malicious. It was intentional. It was strategic. You were being prepared for something demanding this precise combination of capabilities, scars, and strength. You were being molded into an instrument for a purpose that hasn't revealed itself yet. Or perhaps it has. Perhaps you already understand what you're meant to execute. Perhaps you're just terrified to fully commit to it. Because here's the reality about surviving ultimate difficulty. It arrives with obligation. You can't simply absorb all that power and execute nothing with it. You can't simply become powerful and then hide. You can't simply level up and then coast. The universe doesn't function like that. It delivered you these trials because it requires you to accomplish something that others can't. It requires you to execute something demanding, someone who's already traveled through the inferno. Maybe your purpose is to construct something that supports others. Maybe it's to demolish something that's been corrupted for too long. Maybe it's to articulate truth that no one else possesses the courage to vocalize. Maybe it's to generate art that captures what language can't. Maybe it's to guide when everyone else is following. Maybe it's to stand isolated when everyone else is desperate to conform. Maybe it's all of that. Maybe it's none of that. Maybe it's something you haven't even conceived yet. But whatever it is, you're prepared. You've been prepared. You were made prepared through every impossible scenario you confronted. Every time you believed you couldn't advance another step, and you did. Every time you believed you'd shatter, and you flexed instead. Every time you believed it was finished, and it was just the inception of something new. All of that was training. All of that was preparation. All of that was the universe communicating, not yet. There's more. You're not finished. And the magnificent element, you're not finished. You're not even approaching finished. You're just initiating. Because all of that ultimate difficulty, all of those impossible trials, they didn't deplete you. They energized you. They saturated you with a category of energy that can't be purchased or instructed or inherited. The energy of someone who's already perished repeatedly and keeps resurrecting. The energy of someone who's witnessed the abyss and decided it's not their destination. You're not searching for easy anymore. You're not praying for comfort. You're not begging for things to get simpler because you finally comprehend easy mode would extinguish you. It would terminate your spirit faster than any hardship ever could. You need the conflict. You need the pressure. You need the impossibility because that's where you ignite. That's where you remember your identity. So the next time existence delivers you another impossible scenario, another ultimate trial, another challenge that makes other people retreat,